Raising women's voices, one story at a time. Welcome to the She Said Project podcast. Welcome, friends, to another episode of the She Said Project podcast. I am Jeanette Jerzyk, your host. I'm the National Director of the She Said Project, and here with me in the studio is one of the founders of this amazing movement, Miss Carrie Rosso. Hi, Carrie.
Hi, Jeanette.
You ready for another exciting afternoon of sharing stories? That's really the core mission of the She Said Project, is creating a safe space for women to have a voice and to give those women a microphone.
And I am so excited about today's guest because she is another one of those women that can talk about hard things, and in the next breath, I am cry laughing. I love Stacey Cole is in the house.
Are you with us on the line?
Hi, I'm here.
Welcome to the She Said Project podcast.
Thanks for having me.
You are forever in the She Said family because you chose to brave the stage and share a personal story from your life back in 2016 in the live show in Champaign-Urbana. Remember that night?
Sort of, yeah.
It was all a blur. But really, what Carrie said about you, when people who know you talk about you in your community, it's always this brightness. You are a bright light in the community. People know you for the good things you are, for your big, bold personality, how kind and friendly and loving you are. And a lot of people don't or didn't know some of the darker sides of your past until this show happened. Am I right?
Yeah, that's true.
So tell our audience briefly a little bit about what it is you chose to share from the stage and why.
Okay, so I actually chose was convinced, thank you, Carrie, to talk about my experience with domestic violence back when I was a teenager and the child that was a product of that relationship, what actually happened, and then how I was able to pull through that. Because if you were to know me now, and thanks, by the way, for that intro, that was very nice of you to say those things.
Just saying it like it is.
For those that know me, so it would be pretty surprising, even though we all have a story and we all have struggles and things that maybe we aren't necessarily proud of and don't want to talk about. And that would have been one for me. So yeah, I chose to talk about that in detail, and really, more importantly, how I overcame that.
And it is such a difficult topic to talk about in any circles, but you chose to speak out loud, speak from the heart in front of hundreds of women in our community so that, they could be inspired from what you overcame. So let's go ahead and listen to the live performance. That's What She Said 2016 in the Champaign-Urbana community. Stacey Cole talking about the eye of the tiger.
So there I was, getting ready to leave for college. My parents had been saving for this moment since before I was even born. I had made it through those horrifying ACTs. I was going to be getting away from my bratty little sisters, whom I love very, very much. And I was going to be living with some of my best friends. My life was about to start. But my college experience only lasted for 2 months. I soon found myself living a complete nightmare. I was 17. He was 32. I was traumatized and changed forever by the beatings I took and the emotional torture I endured at the hands of a boyfriend. I heard every day that I was a bitch, a slut, worthless. At least he didn't call me fat, because that would have really pissed me off. How in the hell did I get myself in a situation like this? I never once saw my dad hit my mom. I never even heard him raise his voice at her. As a matter of fact, my upbringing was as pretty close to perfect as possible. But no matter how bad the abuse got, I wouldn't leave. I would go back and take more, rinse and repeat. And the abuse did get much, much worse. I'm not going to go there with you guys just yet, but eventually you'll get the picture. I was pregnant at 18, no prenatal care, and living in an apartment in the middle of July in 100-degree weather with no air conditioning and no TV. Because that's absolutely what's important here, was that I didn't have a TV to watch at the time. All I had to eat was rice and corn. I'm clearly eating way more than that now, so don't feel too sorry for me. I had my first baby boy just after my 19th birthday. Not long after bringing him home, I found myself standing outside of our apartment in the snow during a blizzard in only a ripped t-shirt and underwear. Wet, cold, bleeding, bruised. His spit dripping down my face. My baby crying in my arms. The door was locked. We weren't being allowed back in. I was completely helpless. Not knowing what else to do, I knocked on the neighbor's door. Karen answered immediately. I had never spoken, only seen her, as I wasn't allowed to look at or talk to anybody. She let us in and gave us some blankets so we could get warm. My son and I were crying. We were trembling and terrified. I didn't have to say a word. She already knew. She comforted me and told me to get help, to leave and get somewhere safe. This would be my life if I didn't. What kind of man could do this to a woman and child? Well, I'm going to tell you what kind of man. The kind of man who, on my birthday, borrowed $20 from me, walked down the street to Walgreens, bought me a generic frickin' curling iron, brought it back, handed it to me, still in the plastic Walgreens bag, with the receipt still inside. Didn't even give me the change. Loser. That's the kind of man I would be spending my life with. I vividly remember the day I finally kicked him out. He took our clothes, beds, my underwear, everything. I didn't care. My son and I were free from torture, free to live the way we wanted to live. I remember the moment I was able to tell my mom that this was done. It was all over, and seriously this time. She cried, I cried. It was so liberating. My sister Nikki and I drove to St. Louis to pick up a friend of hers from the airport with Independent Women by Destiny's Child blaring on repeat almost the entire way there. I was Beyonce. I started calling my friends one by one with an apology. I had a voice. I never once looked back after that day. I eventually figured out a way to go back to college. Now, it wasn't that college experience that 17-year-old girl had dreamed of. I would ride the MTD to Parkland every day. I remember waiting at a bus stop in Savoy, and I saw a man walking his dog. That man, a complete stranger, came up to me and asked me where I was going. When I told him, he said, "Stay in school. Don't quit. No matter how tough it gets, never give up." And I didn't. And do you know who that man was? Former U of I men's basketball coach Lou Henson. So I guess you could say we're totally best friends now. It was a Friday afternoon when I received a phone call from the Chancellor Hotel offering me a job in their sales office making a whopping $12,000 a year. Felt like Christmas. I immediately started calling daycares. I made call after call after call. And after being turned away from nearly every daycare in town, a lady named Barb, who owned a really small daycare on Mattis, called me back. I said, look, I'm a single mom. I just got a job and I start on Monday. I won't have any money until my first paycheck. She said, Stacey, don't worry about it. Bring him in on Monday and pay me when you can. So here's the deal. Every single one of us gets through the tough times because there is someone there standing in the gap to help us close it. Lots of people want to ride with you in the limo, but what you want is someone that will take the bus with you when that limo breaks down. We all have a story, and many of us walk down the hardest path possible, and that's because it's just the way life is. It ain't all sunshine and rainbows, right? People are put in our lives for a reason. The heroes of my story have their own stories. My neighbor, Karen, who helped me, she shared with me on that fateful night that there was once a time in her life when she felt helpless and scared and afraid, just like me. Years later, I was picking up my son from school and I ran into her. I had the opportunity to thank her, to let her know that because she helped me, I made it out. I had survived. Karen Cottrell, who is here in the audience tonight, thank you. Thank you. That lady Barb I talked about at that really small daycare on Mattis. Barb Sullivan, the owner of Next Generation, thank you. By the way, I never did pay her on time, ever, and there is a really strong chance I still have an outstanding balance there with her. My parents are the true heroes in my story. Their door was always open. I could always count on them, and I still can. They are my angels. Mom and Dad, thank you. As I look back on all the different parts of my story, I don't always remember what people said to me, but I always remember how they made me feel. And I could tell this as a story of heroism, or I could tell it as a story filled with tragedy and defeat. It's actually both. It made me who I am, a survivor, a conqueror of obstacles, a fighter. And the fact that I was able to get out of this situation is a trophy that I will hold on the highest shelf. I am so very proud to share with you tonight that I have a loving, caring, kind, protective husband and 3 kids, all of whom are safe, and one even likes me. Life is about the journey, not so much the end result. It was Rocky Balboa who once said, "You, me, nobody is going to hit as hard as life. But it ain't about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward."
Well, Stacey, how is that? When you look back at the video clips or you listen to it again, where are you now? Does that feel like an out-of-body experience to watch that, or what are your feelings?
Yeah, it does. It does. You know, and actually, it's a little ironic because I can still watch that. I can probably watch that 100 more times,
Mm-hmm.
and it's still internally, it still makes me sad that I went through that. If I'm being honest. But it does, on the other hand, makes me so proud of where I am today and who I am today. Because,
Congratulations.
obviously, thank you. I'm not the same person today that I was over 20 years ago, and my 42-year-old self would never tolerate that.
And there are so many women who've gone through that or are going through that who don't seek help and don't get out, and the stories don't have the happy ending that yours did.
Stacey, I know you just had a new baby. New to me. Anything under 5 is a new baby. But having a daughter, is it different for you to think back on those struggles now that you have a daughter?
Oh my gosh, that is such an amazing question. Yes. Gosh, I hadn't even thought of it like that. I'm assuming that would have crossed my mind at some point. But you know what? Yes, it's very scary because she's got my DNA too, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yes, that does scare me. But it obviously, I'm an older parent now, so I feel like I'm a little bit wiser, and maybe lacking the energy part. But yeah, I think that it will be an important part of our life story and our journey as we raise her, to make sure that we're talking about those things and making sure that, she's got as much as she can from us, at least, to go out into the world and feel confident and independent and able to make really good choices.
Well, I think it was so important for the people that heard your story, but also for the people who knew you. And because we do have this stereotype of, somebody with such a big, bold, seemingly happy, seemingly, seems like nothing bad could ever have happened to you. It doesn't make sense, but that's the stereotype. And that's what we do when people seem to be all pretty and wrapped up on the outside. It was a great thing for, I think, so many people. I heard over and over, like, wow, would not have guessed that, would have never thought she'd gone through that. Did you get a lot of that kind of feedback?
Yeah, absolutely. Because obviously, my closest friends knew, and my immediate family knew that had happened, but there was actually still family members that didn't even know that had happened. But I was kind of raised where if something bad happens to you, you don't really talk about those types of things.
Mm-hmm.
You kind of push through it. You don't want to bring shame to your family. But as you start to heal through things like this, you start to realize that it's not your fault, and that other people go through things like that, and it's really kind of shaped you into who you are. And so instead of being embarrassed about it, I allowed the story to help empower me to help empower others.
Well, and the great thing about your story is that wasn't the end of the story. You have so many years and such a beautiful story that came after that.
Yeah, I'm really, really fortunate. I'm to be able to have the life that I have now. I've always had a really, really supportive family, a really supportive tribe and network. But I have a life that 20 years ago I wouldn't have thought that I would have. So we have wonderful kids, and I have a great job. I have a great career. I have a wonderful husband, and I still have a really great network. There's just more people in my network in my tribe. But they all play significant roles in my life now and are very supportive. And, the truth is that you don't get to where you are in life without going through some kind of struggle or struggles. And so I got here today because I had to go through those tough times to find out what I was really made of, what kind of grit I had. And it gave me the boost that I needed.
Well, a lot of people
I wouldn't be here,
who go through struggles like that, go through them behind closed doors. You took a very brave moment and shared your struggle in a very public way. And we want to applaud you for that, because now we see an opportunity through the She Said Project podcast to share stories like yours with a greater audience, with more women who can benefit, who can learn, who can say, I've been there. I'm not alone. If she can do it, so can I. And, the impact goes on.
Absolutely. I felt like this experience, getting on the stage and sharing that story, I didn't really realize how difficult that was going to be. But at the end, I really felt like it gave me permission to let go of the shame. So I didn't think I was going to be nervous to get up there. I thought I would be okay. But because of the content, I was shaking in my boots, but I did. And Jeanette, you might remember, as soon as I finished and walked off the stage, and again, this happened 20 years ago, I went backstage and I fell to my knees and I just cried like a baby.
And every woman who was in the show with you surrounded you in that moment in support.
That is a visual that is etched in my mind forever.
And that is...
Oh, my gosh. It gives me chills because I still tear up thinking about that. Yes, they all were. All of you were around me, and I just remember looking up. But that was a really defining moment for me.
Catharsis.
That was really, really, that was something. I mean, that was not I'm going to cry and make people feel sorry for me. That was in my soul. That needed to come out. And that performance allowed me to stare that in the face. And really brought closure that I didn't realize that I needed to have. And that I didn't have, but it did. And I felt free after that. I never would have imagined that's how I would have felt after that.
Stacey, it makes me so happy to hear that revelation and that's how you walked away from that experience. And we want that to be available to more and more women because it's time for women to stand up and share their stories. So we want to thank you so much for joining us today on the She Said Project podcast and for giving us your blessing to share your story with even more women because we know how important it is. So thank you for being you. You are beautiful. You are incredible. And thank you for being part of the She Said family.
Thank you guys so much. I really, really appreciate you and I love you very much.
We love you, Stacey.
We love you, Stacey. Join us each week for another incredible and empowering story from the She Said Project podcast. Thank you for listening to the She Said Project podcast in partnership with Illinois Public Media. All materials contained in the podcast are the exclusive property of The She Said Project and That's What She Said, LLC. For more information on our live shows, go to shesaidproject.com. This podcast was presented by Sterling Wealth Management, empowering women to live their best lives. Learn more at sterlingwealthmanagement.com.